what I'm finding is that the more authentic I am, the more love I get, actually.
This is a place of just authenticity where we can talk about our story and our experiences.
I had lost so much in my life that I was like, even if I lose the approval of a stranger, it would just be too much for me. Do you like that one?
Even if I lose the approval of a stranger, it'll be too much.
Ready to go?
I'm ready to go.
Hey guys, welcome to Practically Famous, where we teach you how to build a thriving social and dating life in 2025. I'm Brad, your host.
And I'm Jake, your co-host.
So let's get into it. This week, what kind of existential terror did we overcome?
So much existential terror. Yeah.
Every week, that's what it's about.
Yeah, it is. Every week we go out and we push ourselves to our goals, and that naturally just brings that crisis to the surface so that we can deal with it.
Yeah, exactly. As much as I would love for it, and I'm sure most guys would just love for it to be as simple, just what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? Right?
Yeah.
Oh, just do this, just do this, just do this. But that's not really how it works, because everything that we're going after isn't necessarily a performance or skill-based thing. It's an internal-based thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because like before I was really on the journey, and when I was curious about this, but I wasn't actually taking much action, I would like watch videos or even just think about like, oh, I could go up to a girl and just say, hey, what's up? Like, it's not that hard. But then when you really go and do it, you realize that the part that's hard is that there's so much internal resistance going on that you have to deal with in order just to be normal, just to go up and say, hey, what's up? You have to let go of all that just to give yourself the freedom to do that, to do something simple.
Absolutely. Because you're right. You see it on YouTube. Some guy walks up to a girl, says hello, and it's like, that's the easiest thing ever.
It's easy, yeah. And then you get there and you're like, fuck am I doing?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's your nervous system fighting back at you saying, hey, this isn't something we normally do. This is not something I feel safe doing.
Yeah.
And that's nervous system safety is been a big theme of mine. Obviously, we talk about the nervous system a lot, but nervous system safety is kind of how I think about it, right? It's where do I feel safe to be myself and express myself? Mm-hmm. So even with building the podcast, with building social media, I built 10,000 followers on Twitter last year, and it's because I felt safe posting there. I felt safe writing, but I wasn't using my face last year.
That's exactly what I was going to ask, is the fact that, being on video now and just even Instagram as a different platform is a whole different ballgame, right?
Absolutely. And I'm training myself to feel safe. And I have put my face on my Twitter account, which still has over 10,000 followers. So people can see me, but now I'm on the podcast. And not only am I being seen, I'm really pushing myself to talk about some of the deepest, most vulnerable, intimate parts of my life that I barely shared with anyone before. And now I've gone straight from maybe sharing that with 1 to 2 people to I'm just going to say it on the podcast.
Yeah, from my perspective, like I've seen you like grow into that, but I've also seen how empowering that has been for you to do it because it's hard, but then to feel proud of yourself because you did it, because you shared it on the podcast.
Absolutely. And I feel like it is really starting to translate into other aspects of my life. It's really starting to translate into going out and talking to girls. I'm feeling so much more comfortable when I'm out now, talking to people, talking to girls, talking to really attractive girls, because I no longer feel like I'm trying to hide anything. Mm-hmm. A lot of the times when you start approaching girls, it's not just about going up and saying hi, right? I think if it was just about going up and saying hi, maybe anybody could do it easily, but it's not about the hi, it's about what comes next, right? You're going to stand there vulnerably and let this girl see you. And that's why guys want like, oh, I want to know what to say. That way she doesn't have to see the real me, right? Because really at the core of that question is a lot of shame. It's a lot of, without stating it directly, it's indirectly stating, how can I get this girl without her knowing the real me?
Right. It's like, what do I need to say to get this girl to like me? Not, can I just be who I am?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And when you're trying to hide who you are, you feel nervous system safety, right? You feel unsafe being seen by others. There's levels of extremes with that. Some people might feel only safe when they're by themselves at home alone. Some people might only feel safe with one or two trusted friends. Some people might feel safe with a small group of people that, a community that they're a part of. And then some people are just like, yeah, this is me. The whole world can see it. I don't give a fuck. And that's where I'm trying to get to. And that's a lot of, we follow Whitney Euland on Instagram.
Shout out Whitney.
Yeah, Whitney, we want to come on your podcast for sure.
I think we vibrate very closely to where you vibrate, Whitney. So let's get that collaboration going.
100%. Because her podcast is How to Be Famous and ours is Practically Famous.
Yeah.
And while ours isn't necessarily 100% dedicated to like how to become famous, it is a big part of it. And everything that she talks about on her page and her podcast, you're right. It really resonates deeply with us. That's where I'm even getting the language that I'm using right now about feeling the safety to be seen.
That, to me, that shows that we're both approaching truth, right? If we're finding the same things that she's finding as far as, all right, how do you actually go out and be famous? Well, it has to do with nervous system strength and feeling safe about who you are. Like that, we're approaching a truth about life, in my opinion.
Absolutely. And I like this framework too, because just like she says, it's all about the inner work. And with game, with dating, with girls, it's all about the inner work. You can learn some tactics or lines and maybe it might work sometimes, but I'm not trying to get something to work once or twice. I'm trying to be this person who can safely, comfortable walk up to any girl and spit game. And by game, I mean really spit authenticity.
Yeah.
Be my real self and know deep down in my core that I am good enough for her and that she would be lucky to end up with a guy like me.
Yeah. And we've talked about that is exactly what is most magnetic. That is way more attractive than any sort of practice game. It's when you spit true authenticity, there's nothing like it.
I agree. Authenticity, someone told me this once I was at my shuffle dancing convention, actually. I was talking to this girl and I was sharing about my journey. This is when I was going through a really difficult time. And I was just telling this girl that was there at the convention just a little bit about my story and what I was going through. And I told her, my word for this year is authenticity. I feel like I spent my whole life pretending to be what I thought everyone else wanted me to be or what I was supposed to be. And I just kind of lost myself. And that's why I even went to that shuffle dancing convention, is because it just felt authentic to me. And I was like, hey, if this feels authentic, I'm going to do it. And she told me something I'm never going to forget. She told me authenticity is the highest form of vibrational frequency. It's even higher than love.
That's fire.
Yeah, that really, really struck a chord with me. And I think about that all the time. So, when you're talking to girls and you want them to feel your vibe, right? What's the highest vibe that you can have? It's authenticity. It is the courage to be 100% yourself and let yourself be seen completely and let her witness that in you. And that's what's going to draw her to you.
So I love that, but let's go a little bit deeper and into that. And specifically one thing you said, right? You use courage to bring yourself to a place of vulnerability and authenticity. Is that true?
Courage is the starting point where you initially have to push into that zone of discomfort, right? So if you want to train yourself to be able to be authentically seen by everyone, that's going to start with courage. You're going to have to start pushing into that realm. But to actually sit in it is you have to go beyond courage. You just have to feel comfortable with it. And once you're feeling totally comfortable with it, it doesn't require as much courage. It still requires some. I think to some degree, being authentic is an act of courage, but it requires a lot more courage at the beginning to push yourself into that realm than it does once you've done it hundreds and hundreds of times.
Right.
You've taught your nervous system, hey, I've done this and I feel safe. Even with the podcast, right? This is episode 9 that we're recording. Episode 8 last week, I shared some really deep shit that I have not shared with most people that I've met in my life, right? But how am I feeling this week? I'm not dead.
Yeah. True.
So what did I teach my nervous system? Hey, it was okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm safe. Every time I have told people things about my insecurities, things about my past mistakes, about my dark side, nothing bad has ever happened to me.
Right.
I think that's why I feel like I'm kind of entering into a phase now of accelerated growth, because I'm not being constantly held back by my fears of what are people going to think? Is this okay for me to do? Is my life going to end if I do this? Are people going to reject me? Am I never going to find love? Stuff like that. What I'm finding is that the more authentic I am, the more love I get, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And that once that starts to take place in your brain and in your nervous system, results start to accelerate.
Yeah, and I gotta commend you for this, because I've watched you, especially over like the last 2 weeks or so, really start to ingrain these new beliefs, like you said, in your body, like to embody and to be in your body with these new beliefs. I've watched you continue to push yourself, use that courage to go to those places that you were uncomfortable with before, learn to relax there, take the lesson of like, oh, I am okay, I can show up authentically, and then reinforce that belief within yourself. And I've seen how much that's really increased your vibe, increased your energy, and it's been amazing to watch so far.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I do feel like my vibe is a lot better. Man, if you take me back to February, 3 months ago, my vibe was not good. It was not. I was going through a really, really rough time. I was going through basically an identity crisis. And I would go out and I would want to connect with people, but I was so scared to talk to people because I already felt like I had lost so much in my life that I was like, even if I lose the approval of a stranger, it would just be too much for me.
Yeah.
But now that I'm starting to see do you like that one?
Even if I lose the approval of a stranger, it'll be too much for me. I try to hold it in.
Yeah. Oh man, now my face is all red. Yeah. I can feel it. I can feel my face turning red.
Yeah, it is red.
I feel the heat in my face right now.
Yeah, that's funny.
Anyways, what was I trying to say?
You were in a tough place in February, and it was like even when you went out, it was too much to continue to get more rejection.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas now I'm feeling so much safer, right? So when I go out, even just walking up to people in general, like I just feel comfortable doing it because I don't care what happens.
Yeah. I feel like that points to something really important too about this whole process is like putting it into your schedule or being structured about time every day, every week that you spend just filling up your own cup, right? Just reminding yourself of everything you've accomplished, that you're good enough, just feeling good about yourself as a whole. Like you need to spend time every day doing that.
Yeah. And I want to make something very clear just because, especially for the people who follow our podcast weekly, I really want to make sure that you guys understand something. Like last week, I shared a lot of things because I was really frustrated. Mm-hmm. I'd been going out and I could talk to people and I was going out, but I was feeling like I was having trouble really being authentic and really expressing myself. And I was really frustrated by that, which is what kind of led to us sharing last week about just like, you know what? Fuck it. Let's just be honest about everything.
Yeah.
Let's be honest about what's going through our minds, where we're feeling like we're not showing up very well, and stop pretending like we're just like doing amazing all the time. Mm-hmm. Not that we have a huge problem with that. Like I feel like we've done a good job to be vulnerable throughout this podcast, but to get just really raw and real. Mm-hmm. And that really, I think for me, really unlocked a lot of things this week.
Yeah, I think we just need to be reminded of that. I mean, I think we've always strived to be authentic, but obviously, like when you're doing something new, like creating a podcast, you step into it wanting to be the best you can be, and sometimes that overshadows just the pure authenticity. And I think last week we were reminded of why we're doing this. This is a place of just authenticity where we can talk about our story and our experiences.
100%. What you said is so perfect, such a perfect metaphor for approaching girls. Mm-hmm. Because just like you said, when you start approaching girls, it's a new thing. You want it to go well.
Yeah. And you really want to avoid it not going well.
Definitely. So you start doing it and you might start kind of pretending that like, hey, look, I'm doing so good. You walk up to a girl and you pretend like, oh, I'm this amazing, this and that, right? Because this week with girls, I was having a lot better time expressing myself. And it wasn't because I was pretending to be like Mr. Amazing or something. I was just so much more relaxed this week. And I was fine just being honest with girls the way I was on the podcast last week. And I said it on the podcast last week that the vulnerability of this episode is going to lead our game moving forward. And it did. It absolutely led my game this week, where I felt like I'm not trying to hide anything from these girls anymore. I'm not trying to pretend I'm this or that. I'm just trying to be myself, right? I was talking to a couple girls this weekend, and we had a really funny interaction because I was just being super honest about everything. They asked me why I moved to Arizona, and I was telling them everything, like, oh yeah, I went through a breakup and I sold my house and I quit my job. And they're like, are you going through a midlife crisis? And I was like, basically, yeah. And then for like the 5-10 minutes I was talking to them, I kept weaving that joke in there about me going through a midlife crisis, and I was just like owning it. And every time I would own it, they would just crack up, and we had a fun, lively interaction, and I wasn't trying to hide anything, and that helped me relax. So then the next girls I talked to, I was relaxed, and the next girls I talked to, I was even more relaxed. And I got to a point where I didn't even realize that I was out approaching girls anymore. I was just socializing.
You're just hanging out.
Yeah. I was just talking to girls and having fun.
Yeah.
And expressing myself. And I wasn't judging myself for the things that I wanted to say. I wasn't worried about the things that I was going to say. And even if there was a moment where I felt like, oh, the conversation ended, there's some silence now, I was able to sit in it.
It's all good. It's A-okay.
It was fine.
Yeah. That's a really good place to be. Yeah, it is. And you've earned that place, right?
Yeah.
It takes letting go to get there.
Yeah. And so now moving forward, I have to remember now too, don't let this progress become a new ego thing that I have to then undo again later, right? How do I continue to sit in this? And it's just by continuing to be vulnerable and be honest and be authentic, and not trying to filter the words I say so much.
I love that. And I think that's a fantastic way to think about it. But I also want to acknowledge that the ego will come back.
Yeah.
Right? The ego will sneak in, and that's okay too. Right?
Sneaky little bastard.
Yeah, and it always will. And you'll always go through the process of letting that go and returning to authenticity.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a practice of always returning to yourself.
That's a great way of putting it. Because that's what, like even a regular meditation practice, it's kind of the point is like, you're always going to get off track. So it's about bringing yourself back.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then I know for you had a really powerful week with authenticity and expression too. And you did something that, and I'm going to let you say what you did, but I just want to let you know, demands the highest of respect from me personally. And I know I pushed you to do it, and it's because it's something that I've done in the past that led to something really big.
So this was a really powerful week for me. I think it was a very challenging week. I had more than a couple nights of just adversity, right? Between dealing with and integrating the emotions and lessons that I've been learning. But for me, this week started with the acknowledgement that I'm still hiding parts of myself from the world as a whole, as well as specifically my family. And so that was a really difficult thing for me to acknowledge, but also it was something that's been weighing on me and weighing me down for a long time. And so I had to prepare myself to, really become clear about what do I value and what do I want my life to look like, regardless of what my family thinks, because I was hiding myself because I felt that they didn't approve and that they just thought very negatively about the life that I was choosing to live. And so I had to become clear on what that looked like, and I had to present that honestly and authentically to my family, and that was very challenging because there was so much. I felt that I was judging myself so much based on what they were going to judge me on. And so it was tough, but it was really good for me, and it was good for me to let go of that weight because that was weighing on me a lot for probably the last 3 years. So it was like a breath of fresh air after I had that conversation. And I think it speaks a lot to what we were just talking about, that this is the next step for me. I can finally stop hiding. I can start being authentic. And especially when it comes to this podcast, I knew that I was hiding parts of myself. And so me taking that action, like you said, with the utmost respect, is me declaring to the universe that this is what I'm about now. I'm all in on this now.
Love that.
Yeah.
That's such an important moment, I personally feel like, in a man's life. Like you said, you're declaring to the universe who you are, and you start that. Where do you start that, right? You could start it on a podcast. You could declare from the mountaintops. Sometimes that's easier, though, than facing your own family.
Yeah.
I had a moment in my mid-20s where I had to talk to my parents about something that I was really afraid to talk to them about, because the way I grew up, very like religious, conservative household. And in my mid-20s, I came to the conclusion that I did not personally align with the religious beliefs that my family held.
Mm-hmm.
And that was very difficult just to harbor, but I had to be courageous. And I knew that if I couldn't tell my own family what I believed about the world, then I was going to struggle my whole life to do anything effectively, to be authentic at all.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot hide yourself. And I feel like so many guys, we kind of touched on this about like when you approach a girl, it's like you want to get the result while hiding yourself.
Yeah, you cannot do that.
You can't.
You cannot.
You have to be able to tell the entire world, this is who I am.
Yeah.
If you want to be a strong man, you want to be a leader, you want to be someone people look up to, you want to be someone that women want to be with, you have to be able to withstand that kind of pressure and that kind of tension from the world. And the world definitely, I think it starts with your intimate relationships, right?
Mm-hmm.
The people closest to you need to know who you are. If they don't, it's going to drive you insane.
Yeah, it's going to weigh on you like literal energetic weight. It was pulling me back. It was holding me back.
Yeah, because you're going to live a whole life pretending.
Mm-hmm. That's what I was doing.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. I was pretending that I wasn't living this life when I really was.
And yeah, it's such an important moment for a man to be able to tell his own family, like, hey, in a loving way too, not like, hey, you guys are wrong and I'm right. It's nothing like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like when I approached it, it was like, hey, I want you guys to know first and foremost how much I love you, but this is who I am.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope that moving forward, you can love me for who I am, regardless of our differences, because you're still my family and you're the most important people in my life. And I still want a relationship with you.
Yeah. You're doing this because you love them and you want them to see who you really are, right? Not because even if you have differing beliefs, it's not about that. It's about having true connection with them. And like we said, showing up authentically again. That's how I felt. I felt like that my family didn't really know who I was or who I was becoming. And so I like what you said, that it's the most important thing a man can do. And I think it's a very sacred part of the path to go out, to figure out who you are, who you want to be, and then to come back to your family and to show them that version of you, that authentic version of you.
Yeah. Sometimes I like to think of things in a little bit of extremes because it helps my mind understand concepts clearer.
Mm-hmm.
So in my mind, like if you're not being honest with people and authentic with people, then what does that mean? So what's the opposite of that? Then that means you're being a liar. And that sounds really harsh.
Mm-hmm.
But I like to think of it like that because that harshness does get through to my brain a little bit. It's like, do you want to be a dishonest liar? Is that the kind of man you are?
Yeah, no, I'm on board with that because sometimes you have to do that to really see. It's easy to tell yourself that you're not doing something when you are.
Yeah. Like, let me give you an example. Last year, I called off a wedding to my ex-fiance just a few weeks before the wedding was going to take place. And the reason I did it is because I felt like I was living a life that was inauthentic to me, which is fair. But when I think about it, I feel almost a little bit of guilt about it because what does that mean I was doing for the 3 years that we were together? I was kind of subtly lying about who I am.
Yeah.
Now, I want to give myself a little grace in there. I do feel like I wasn't hiding myself completely or lying completely. I think that she definitely had moments where she saw who I am and kind of brushed it under the rug herself. So maybe even she was being a little inauthentic with me because I thought she was down for the kind of person I am and who I am and what I want out of life and things like that. But we both had moments where maybe we brushed things under the rug and we weren't as honest as maybe we should have been.
Mm-hmm.
But I have to live with that, thinking like, man, if I just would have been more authentic, maybe we could have figured that out sooner, and it wouldn't have led to so much heartbreak at the end there.
Yeah.
Because, the way it went down, there wasn't anything like, she's a great person and I don't have any ill feelings towards her. I just knew it wasn't going to be right.
Yeah.
But I know because of that now, it's like, oh man, I cannot hold back any part of me around people in general, because if I do, it's just going to lead to a point where that happens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I like that you acknowledge that she's a good person and you're a good person. It's not that. And so sometimes you quote unquote lie, but I think it's mostly that you're lying to yourself.
Yeah.
But it doesn't come from a place of manipulation or negativity. It comes from a place of wanting to keep the peace.
Sure.
However, like you and I have realized, is that for us, this path requires radical authenticity and integrity, meaning that to be in integrity with myself means to allow my entire expression of who I am to be realized.
Yeah.
And you can't compromise on your integrity just to keep the peace.
Radical integrity, radical authenticity, radical honesty is the way to go. And, it's interesting because I noticed something. So I was out Friday night. I went out alone on Friday night because you were dealing with some stuff. And I had a little bit of a breakthrough moment about this kind of concept. I was talking to these two girls. They're very, very attractive girls. And I was having a lot of fun with them. We were vibing, hanging out. But I noticed something. A lot of what they would talk about and what they would say is they would call attention to their flaws and then laugh about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember thinking in that moment, why am I always trying to pretend to be so good? Why am I always pretending to be so perfect? Because when they would do that, it was endearing. Mm-hmm. And it was fun. And it made the conversations funny and it made the conversations lively. And it didn't make me think any less of them. Mm-hmm. Telling people about your flaws and opening up to people. Now, obviously, there's a calibrated way to do it or not. I'm not saying go to the bar and just start telling everyone about your deepest, darkest secrets. But you don't have to pretend to be perfect. Mm-hmm. Like that was this lesson that I got taught by these two 21-year-old girls,
Yeah.
Like they're just being silly and funny and goofy and talking about like, oh, and I did this and it was such a bad idea and this and that. Why can't I do that? Right? Why can't I just embrace my flaws and laugh at myself and stop taking life so seriously? Like you want to be more fun and more playful and more flirty. Stop taking yourself so seriously.
Yeah. Taking life less seriously is another lesson I learned this week that was very impactful for me too. Yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah, life is so ridiculous, guys. It's the whole concept of us being here. It's hilarious. Life, humans, we're so funny, and the way that we think everything matters so much. We attach so much meaning to things that don't truly matter at all. Like, again, perfect example, last week, me admitting, so much of my deepest vulnerable aspects, like my struggles with addiction and everything. I thought, oh, this is such a big deal. I shouldn't say this. And then I was like, okay, it's 7 days later and nothing's happened to me. Like life is fine.
Yeah.
I made this thing up in my head that this was such a big deal, but it's just not,
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like for a time I've always been very invested in self-improvement, but there was a time where it really got too much. I was putting too much pressure on myself to self-improve. And through reflection, I arrived at the realization that that was coming from, again, the deep down part of myself that didn't feel good enough. But it felt like if I could just push hard enough, if I could just become good enough, charismatic enough, attractive enough, a good enough leader, then finally I'd be enough. But it was a treadmill because no matter how much progress that I made, I just moved the goalpost, and it was good because I grew a lot, but it was incredibly draining. And so now I'm really starting to realize and integrate that I can still grow. I can still push myself to grow. I can push myself out of my comfort zone, but I don't have to tear myself down. I don't have to destroy my internal world to do that, right? I can do that from a place of acceptance and gratitude and just generally being okay with life and having fun in life, you know, be in that energy first and then use courage to step in attention and grow.
Yeah.
But your baseline should be acceptance, fun, gratitude, and then courage.
Just laugh at yourself.
Yeah.
Because we all have problems. We all have flaws, and no one's more aware of them than you are.
Yeah.
I am more aware of my flaws than anyone in the world. You're more aware of your flaws than anyone in the world.
Yeah.
Like, you think you have all your flaws. Like, I'm sitting here thinking, like, Jake's so great. When he goes out, he flirts with girls so good. I see him do it all the time. Why am I bad at that? But the truth is, I'm not bad at it. I just see my flaws.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And I choose, basically, because I see you out. I've seen you out not at your best, but those aren't what I remember.
Exactly.
Right? I think about you when you're out. I think about you at your best. And when I'm out, I think about me at my worst.
Yes.
And then I compare, and I'm like, man, Jake's doing better than me. but that's not always the case, you know?
Yeah, I do the same thing, and I just did yesterday. I was like, I feel insecure because I feel like you're vibrating so much higher than I am, and I just had a tough week, and you've had a good week. So yeah.
Sometimes it'd be like that.
It do be like that, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I'm getting a lot better at going out alone.
Yeah,
I went out alone twice this week, which I might as well have like climbed Mount Everest because that's just something I couldn't do before. And I'm so excited that I'm getting so much more comfortable with this. Just comfortable, again, just being myself, comfortable being seen, even if I'm out by myself. Mm-hmm. You know, and people ask me sometimes, like when I was out talking to these girls on Friday, I was having a conversation with them for like 20 minutes before they're like, who'd you come with? And I was like, no, I just came by myself. And they're like, oh, that's so cool. That's awesome. People think it's great.
People do. People really respect it.
Yeah. And the whole time I was scared to do it because I thought that made me look weird or something.
Yeah.
When if I could have just expressed myself authentically and honestly, like, yeah, I come out alone, people think that's great.
Yeah. I think because they see that that's not something they could do.
Yeah.
So they respect it.
And I don't drink.
Yeah.
So I'm out there alone and sober. Like I'm on display.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not hiding with my group of friends. I'm not hiding behind substances. I'm just being there, straight up vulnerable. And you're right. I think people do respect that. Mm-hmm. And now that I'm doing it more and I'm getting more comfortable at it, I'm starting to see the real power of it.
It's freeing.
So freeing.
It really is. Because you're like, I could go anywhere.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love that feeling.
Yeah, it's a great feeling. Just overall, just getting so much more comfortable. And the comfort is leading to better interactions and more fun interactions because I'm not worried about anything. Mm-hmm. Anything I say is fine. And if someone doesn't like me, then fine. That's okay. I like me.
Their loss.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I'm fucking awesome.
That's funny.
Oh, you know, one other thing I did this week in terms of like feeling comfortable being seen is something I haven't done in a while, but I actually approached a girl during the day. Mm. And for whatever reason, I felt like I was hiding behind night game for a while. So, you know, I talked about you might hide with your group of friends. You might hide behind substances. I was kind of hiding with, okay, well, I'm not with my friends or my substances, but I still need to go out to like a bar or a club to be able to approach girls. Whereas now I'm feeling more comfortable within myself, more comfortable being seen so I can be more vulnerable that I can even approach a girl during the day now. And that's going to lead to, I think, just so many more opportunities for me.
Yeah, I love that. And I see us kind of going in this direction of like no longer approaching girls, right? We're just talking to people because we like that. You know, we like to talk to people, or we just like interacting with girls. Like, it doesn't have to be approaching anymore. It just has to be living our life. And our life is just when we talk to people that we want to talk to.
Yes, I like that. Fixing the mindset to just like, yeah, we just talk to people.
Yeah.
And not only just that we talk to people, but that people are drawn to us. Mm-hmm. So I went to the DMV this week and I was sitting on a chair just waiting there. And this mom and her daughter walked in. The daughter's like 2 years old or some shit, right? And they sat down a few chairs over from me. And this little girl, she kept walking back over to me and just staring at me. She couldn't even talk. But she would just stare at me and she would smile, and I was
in amazement.
Yeah, and I would look back at
this famous guy.
Exactly, right? And I would just look back at her and I would smile and I would like tease her, joke with her, and then she'd giggle and she'd run back to her mom, and then she'd come back and she'd look at me. And
yeah,
I definitely feel that just my energy in general is so much more attractive to people now. in general. People see me, they feel safe around me because I feel so grounded in my own body. Mm-hmm. My eye contact is better. I'm willing to engage with people in a way that was a struggle for me a few months ago. And yeah, things are starting to go in a really good direction, I feel like. I felt like this week for me was a very monumental week in terms of how I feel my progress is moving and how I feel like it is starting to accelerate now.
I love that.
So yeah.
Next week, we should do a deep dive on embodiment. Like, what does it mean to be in your body?
I agree. That's probably a really good idea.
Yeah, because we've been talking about that quite a bit. And
yeah, we're kind of talking about the surfaces of it, but I think a deep dive episode would actually be cool.
That would be cool. Yeah, deep dive embodiment.
Yeah, that would be the next level for Practically Famous. All right, guys. Well, that's going to wrap it up for us this week. I hope you guys are having an amazing week. Keep pushing forward. Small progress. It does build up over time. I've had so many times where I felt like I was making no progress, but even 1% a week, it really builds up. And then eventually builds up to having weeks, kind of like the one that I had this week, where I felt like everything just fell into place.
Fuck yeah.
Please like, comment, and subscribe on our videos. Comment, guys. We want to know about you. We want to know what's resonating with you, what you want to hear us talk about. And
what are your challenges?
Exactly. We want to start building a relationship with you guys and getting to know you as well. God knows you know us. We're doing our best to not hold anything back here.
That's funny.
Like, comment, and subscribe. And until then, we'll see you next week on Practically Famous. Until then, go talk to some girls.
Peace.